ready to get started again, I believe. We're ready to go. So we're back in session on the Commissioner Hutton's resolution item 14. And let me, Commissioner Stidham has proposed amendment and has not been agreed to by the sponsor. Commissioner Stidham has made a motion, and we don't have a second. So we do, Commissioner Stidham, I'm going to recognize you for explanation of your amendment, and then we'll ask for a second.
Mayor, we didn't get it wrote out there. The gavel was thin. We kind of ran out of time. We were discussing it to make sure we had all the details. My motion was going to be that we go ahead and approve phase 1 of resolution 14 tonight and bring 2 and 3 up at the next regular session of the commission. But the gavel was back in for the
Well, we'll allow you to go ahead and continue to work on that. I believe the commission understands now that we have a second for the motion. Second by Shaw, Starnes, and Woods. Now, discussion on the motion. I've got everybody lined up here that I assume wanted to speak on the amendment because they were on the board previous to the amendment. So I'm going to have to take some folks off. Commissioner Hutton, I'm going to turn your mic back on. Dan, you're leaving. I was going to recognize you. Do I need to recognize you?
I meant to get my sewer rate filed because I thought I might be asking questions.
I've got one you can have, Dan.
It won't take me but a second. Did you want to ask me something?
No, I just thought you wanted to speak.
No.
Okay, I've got,
Unless you've got notes in there.
okay, if you will, and you're on the board, and you want to speak on the amendment, would you raise your hand? Commissioner Vance wants to speak on the amendment. Mr. Vance, you're recognized.
Mr. Stidham, I disagree with your amendment, and I'm going to say why I disagree with it. Is back in 2006, this resolution here in your amendment, what you're trying to do is circumventing the original intent. Is back in 2006, Commissioner Vance, Commissioner King, and Commissioner Hart had a request from the City of Bristol to amend the projects that was identified as Highway 11W, Reedy Creek Phase 1 and 2 projects. We passed that resolution to change those projects to Paperville Road, Beaver Creek Road, and Evans Creek Road Phase 2. Since that time, 12 years, almost 13 years later, those projects have never come to fruition, and we've never funded those projects. All this resolution number 14 is taking the priority of what we did in 2006 and basically changing the priority to include phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. That does not financially obligate this county to any money whatsoever. So in your amendment to approve phase 1, we have already approved phase 1 as a study. If we approve by your amendment as phase 1, then we are obligating ourselves to fund phase 1, which we do not have a determined cost of that yet. So I would recommend you not doing an amendment. I recommend approving resolution 4, just putting those 3 projects as a priority. Just like I was telling Mr. Glover at break time, these projects here that we did in 2006, it never did come to fruition that it was really something the City of Bristol needed because they did not have that development in those areas, so they never really come and made a formal request. Now, in this resolution 14, if there is development in that area and it comes to this county, we may have to automatically come up and fund phase 3 because we're gonna have development in that area. This area in phase 1, 2, and 3 is all rural area of this county. It's not gonna be annexed unless the property owner requests annexation. So the rural people of this county are benefiting to have us make a commitment of looking at development in those areas. So if it comes in front of us after this resolution is passed, we still have the final say if we're going to fund it or not. So all we're doing is changing the categories of what we did in 2006 to include it into the resolution number 14. We've not been obligated to do anything in this 2006 resolution. It's never come with any valid reason. So we're not committing ourselves to anything but 14. All we're saying is we're redirecting the priorities to put those sewer lines in those areas if it becomes financially needed or economically needed for development in that area. We may never have to do it. We may never fund phase 2 or phase 3. But your amendment with phase 1, and you approve that amendment before we have a cost, we've done approved it. That resolution 9 was just asking for a cost of what it was, and we've not appropriated any money whatsoever. And that's the only reason I voted for it, because we don't know what the cost base is gonna be to come back to us. So I think 14 is a good resolution. I think it tells us that we're making not a financial obligation, but we're making a commitment of looking for development in that area around that new middle school. There is some land out there that people are looking at buying to build subdivisions. Sewers may become a viable area for that county to grow in that area around that school. And a perfect example, Boone's Creek. They built schools, they built subdivisions. So I can't support your amendment.
I think I'm gonna recognize Mr. Street now. Dan, you recognize.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I respectfully disagree with Commissioner Vance. The sewer agreement is very clear. If your sewer project is in Exhibit A, then the county is obligated financially. The only reason Sullivan County hasn't paid for those 3 projects for Bristol is because Bristol has decided not to pursue those projects. If we amend the sewer agreement and substitute in 3 projects that they are going to do, we're going to be obligated to pay for them. Unless we amend it under terms that we're not. I mean, we could do that. We could say, well, we want to amend the sewer agreement. We want to substitute these 3 projects in, but we're going to amend the terms of the sewer agreement specifically says the county, under responsibilities of the county, it says the county will pay for these trunk lines in Exhibit A. It even says funding will come from general obligation bonds. That's the clear one responsibility of the county under the sewer agreement, is that we fund the trunk lines under Exhibit A. So to say if we amended the Exhibit A, we don't have any financial obligation, I respectfully say that that's just not true. We very clearly do.
Can I
Okay,
respond to that?
I'm sorry?
Can I respond to that?
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Street, and what you just said, I agree with you, okay? Because what you just said is exactly what Bristol says, that you owe them $3.8 million worth of funding for 3 sewer lines.
What can I respond to that?
Yeah, we're gonna play this thing out, because it's very important.
Well, first of all, I've been told by people here in the county that Bristol got their money. But let's assume you're right, Bristol didn't. Number 2, you know, to say that we owe it, we may owe it if and when those projects start. Those projects haven't started. So to say we owe it, and Bristol has taken the position that they have no interest in pursuing those projects, that's a debt that may happen, it may not happen. But if you substitute in 3 projects that very clearly are going to happen, then all of a sudden that possible debt becomes a real debt.
So we can just claim an impasse and go to mediation.
Well, no, I mean, you're missing the point. I mean,
I believe everybody's point we made. Thank you, Dan. You've clarified some issues, I think, some of the commissioners had expressed concern about. Now we're back, we're still on the amendment. Mr. Stone, you renew your motion for adoption. Does anybody else that's on the list, that's on the board, want to speak on the amendment?
I do. Here's what I'll say, if I may.
Yeah, you're recognized, Mark.
The resolution, as it's written, it is what Mr. Street says. It is asking to transfer the three projects that haven't been fulfilled for this one project, which includes phase one, which includes the school. It has that language. We're kind of living under the sewer agreement, and from Bristol's perspective, those haven't been unfulfilled. We could go to mediation and arbitration for that. If you approve phase one, then, and just do it that way, you can totally do that, but that doesn't eliminate these unfulfilled projects. What Bristol's asking is to transfer the three unfulfilled projects for this one project in an attempt to work with the county and with the county schools. I mean, that's what they're offering. From Bristol's perspective, those three projects from the sewer agreement, with the letter that was sent to Bristol, has opened that door. Those are three projects that were still out there. Bristol came back and said, so if you go and you vote for phase one, what's to say that phase two and three, it just sort of falls by the wayside. And you're not involved in Bristol in this process. Does that negate what's the original sewer agreement? I mean, the other part of that too is, so if you agree on phase one, what's going to guide phase one? The sewer agreement, but you've already kind of blown past the sewer agreement. You're operating outside of the bounds that the county and the city agreed 2 years ago with the sewer agreement. So those are issues I have with this amendment.
Yeah, and properly stated. Commissioner Shaw, you want to speak on the amendment?
Yes, sir. I'm still happy because I think Bristol wants to work with the county, and I think they're here in good faith. I think that the reason that my friend and colleague, Mr. Stidham, wanted to amend this or slow down the train was a resolution should be written so clearly that you can pick it up and understand the intent and not have to rely on verbal explanations that later on down the line are not understood. I mean, for instance, this included, we bandied about the figure of 500,000, but it's not mentioned here. We talked about 3.8 million. It's not in here. What I would suggest to Mr. Stidham, because I agree with him, we ought to slow down the train. And my friend Mark Hutton doesn't want to accept an amendment, and he wants to do this on waiver rules. But unfortunately, we all, as I know, we don't always get what we want around here. I would suggest to Mr. Stidham that he change, instead of amend this, move to defer this. And we've done this before. We did it in the last session with the last commission. If he moves to defer, I will second it. And then we'll take a vote on whether we should defer this.
That's a proper motion for you making, and it needs a second, either with or without Mr. Stidham's agreement, but let's recognize him and see how he.
I agree.
No, I've got to have, before we can discuss that, Pat, I've got to have a second. We have a second. You put that in form of motion first.
I move we defer, but I'm trying to get my parliamentary procedures straight.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Before I can do that, doesn't he have to agree to withdraw his idea?
No, if you move to defer and it is approved, we stay right where we are and take it up at the next.
I move to defer. I'm waiting for a second.
You've heard the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Commissioner Jones. Now we're on the motion to defer. Now we have discussion on that. I've still got 4 people on the board, so I'm going to leave you there because we'll get back to this thing. I won't be the ones you have to say. But anybody wish to speak, I'm going to ask you to raise your hand if you wish to speak on the motion to defer. Mr. Jones.
I'm seconding that because I think we're going to accomplish what everybody's wanting. Gary, Commissioner Stidham has asked to wait 30 days on two parts of it. We have a request, that we've already passed to get a quote on the cost of the sewer line. And we're coming back and we're hoping we have that back here in 30 days. I mean, that's what I'm anticipating, we have that back in 30 days. I don't see the need to do this on a waiver of rules, number 14, because we got to wait on the cost that's got to come first, and we got to agree on that cost. I mean, you know, they're going to bring it, we got to vote on that. If I understand the procedure, we got to vote on spending the money to pay for the cost, and then they're going to give us what the actual cost is. We've had numbers thrown out here with no paper to back up those numbers all night. And that's why I'm seconding this, defer it for 30 days. I think it meets Mr. Stidham, and Mr. Hutton may not agree with that, but I don't see any reason why we have to do it on
Let me clarify the motion to defer to the next regular scheduled meeting.
That's correct, yes,
It's
ma'am.
Sullivan County Commission, okay. That's the motion, we have a
That's
second.
why I said-
Any further discussion? Mr. Broughton, you're recognized, if you'll punch a button, maybe I can get you up there too. We've got one empty space. You're
Yes, sir,
recognized.
thank you. Along with this resolution, I just want clarification from Mr. Street. When does the actual city-county sewer agreement expire?
And I can't recognize you till I cut somebody off. Dan, you're recognized.
Let's see, it's in here.
We're on the old system. Okay.
Well, if I'm not wrong, it's 25 years, yeah, 25 years, so you add, I got it on my other one marked down, 25 years plus 1996, what's that, about 2020, 21, 2021, April the 23rd, 2021.
Todd, if you've got other comments, I'll need you. I'm having to juggle a little bit here. You're recognized.
Thank you. I was just want clarification on that, because I think one of the concerns along with this amendment and the original resolution is, if they was, trying to move all the projects, it'd be almost impossible to move that many projects in this short time. Just my observation. Thank you for the dates.
Thank you. Anybody else on the amendment for Commissioner George and then Commissioner Akers? You want in first? Commissioner Akers, Commissioner George, if you'll push the button, I'll turn. There you go. You're on.
I just want to clarify, the sewer agreement is between, and does this body have the vote, is it our vote that changes the sewer agreement? Or if we do this motion, does it then, you have to call a meeting of the partners in the sewer agreement and they have to approve to do this? Or does this board have the final say?
No, it takes.
It takes.
All four entities.
So no matter what we do, if if Bristol, Kingsport, Bluff City, and they all would have to agree to fund these projects.
Yes.
But I think what the question you're asking is the action tonight going to be the Sullivan County approval? Is that what you're asking?
So that we would approve it, and then the next step would be you all would call a meeting to see if everybody else approved it. So if they didn't, what we did is moot, correct?
Well, yes, in order to amend the sewer agreement, it requires the approval of all four entities, yes. However, the original ideal concept by the school board to put in that collector line and run to Bristol, they weren't gonna amend the sewer agreement, they were gonna do that outside the sewer agreement. But back to your question, to amend the sewer agreement, that, for example, to substitute these three projects, yes, that would require approval by Sullivan County, Bristol, Kingsport, and Bluff City.
Okay, and in doing, so if we pass this, it goes to them, and then they would have to say, yes, it's still in effect, yes, we all approve it, yes, we're good substituting, yes, we're good funding these. No matter what we do here to say we'll fund them, those parties would have to agree to extend the date to make it active. And if one party, like Kingsport said, we feel it ends in 2 years and we're not going to extend it, does that mean that it is not extended?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Dan, I'd like to expand on that, and I thought you were asking if item 14 is approved tonight, is that the formal Sullivan County approval? And I'd like, Dan, if you'll, I'd like your opinion on that, Dan, on this, this agreement. If 14 passes this evening or a month from now, is that the formal Sullivan County approval, or do you have to wait on a request from Bristol and then take that on from? Every time you push your button, you cut yourself off. I'm sorry. You're right.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm of the impression from the questions I've asked and the answers I'm getting that the vote today, as originally intended, was that it was going to be a vote by Sullivan County to amend the sewer agreement. But of course, as we just discussed, we don't have the power to do that ourselves, so we would be initiating that request or that to vote to ask Bristol, Kingsport, and Bluff City to also amend the sewer agreement. But yes, I was of the impression that a vote on Resolution 14 as currently explained would be our official vote to be in favor of amending the sewer agreement to substitute in those 3 projects.
Thank you. Commissioner Akins, you're recognized.
Yeah, some of the same questions, because what I was gonna ask Dan is, I feel like we're just making the resolution 14 here is changing the resolution from May 15th, 2006. So that's what, are we saying we still have to have the other 3 votes to do that?
And that that would be a result of the problem.
Well, if I understood your question, the resolution that you're talking about amended the sewer agreement, and if we went back and simply amended that amendment, would we still need the approval of Kingsport, Bluff City, and Bristol? My answer to that would be yes, we would still need that, yes. I don't know that they ever approved that in that 2008 amendment, to be honest. I never have researched that. But regardless, in order to amend the sewer agreement, it takes the vote of all 4 entities, period, end of story.
So, but the question is, simply, is if the commission approves, and I think this is what David's asked, I think it's what Colette's asked, if the commission approves this tonight, is that the official recognition of Sullivan County of the request from Bristol to amend the sewer agreement?
Well,
but
again, I'm of the impression the answer to that question is yes, but now the sponsor can say the answer is no.
So, you know, not to rehash a lot of history, but we have literally been speaking about this since October. And this is just getting to, I mean, we're supposed to be pretty smart people. And, you know, this is just an absolute, it's getting almost on the verge of just silliness. And honestly, I think I'm going to support whichever amendment or motion to defer.
We're on motion to defer.
Because I think it's, as a constituent of Bristol, I think the ball is in their court, and I would expect to see a letter that says they want their 3 projects on the board to be fulfilled. And then that's going to start this whole thing to figure out who does what, because we're never going to solve this problem. And this is in our lap because of a lot of other issues. And we're trying to all work together, as Pat said, and make it work. But we're pretty much handcuffed, I think, with this sewer agreement and 4 entities that's got to figure all this out. And so I don't even know what to do now.
Okay. Anybody else on the motion to defer?
May I?
Yes, certainly, Mark. You're always correct.
I want to respond to Mr. Street's comment. This resolution from what I understood, in order for this to work, which is phase one, phase two, phase three, in order for that to happen, according to the sewer agreement, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I do teach English, so I can read pretty well. And it basically says that in order to do this, in order to switch projects out, you have to get the approval. That's what this is. It's asking that we change out the 3 projects that were set aside for this Weaver Pike project. And that's what the resolution states. I mean, that's what it's asking for. It's not committing any more money. That's why there's no money listed. Because I know that the original amount, according to the 3 original projects, totals $3.8 million. That's how much, that would be the max, I think, that the county would be on the hook for. But it's already in the previous agreement for those 3 other projects. So it is, from my perspective, it is a resolution to begin the process. That's why it says to establish an agreement and to work in cooperation with these entities and to put this required change of project to the governing bodies party to the original city-county sewer agreement. And that's why it's in there. So that's how I understood it. That in order to even, so we voted on item 9, which is great, but what good will that do? If we come back and we have this money, yeah, it's gonna cost the county $500,000, well, fantastic. Then next month we have to come back and then, take this resolution and say, okay, now we have to go back and ask for this change. That's all this thing is doing. It's not committing any more money. It's getting the process of this whole thing going so that we can solve a problem. Whoever caused the problem, it's insignificant. We're charged with this task of solving the problem. The problem is we've got a school underway that needs a sewer line. We've got a part of our county that needs to have a sewer to it, and we have an opportunity to do it. And this would get things going. It's going to take a month of just putting all these pieces together. That's what this resolution does. I think Bristol has given thumbs up to say when this resolution gets to them for the change of project, they're going to give their thumbs up for it. The county's giving its thumbs up tonight, hopefully. Then it goes to Kingsport and Bluff City. I mean, that's how the process was work. It's supposed to work in conjunction with the sewer agreement that's still in effect for 2 more years. And so that's what we're, and so that's why it's in there. So, I mean, if you want to defer a month, I mean, we'll just come back with the same thing in a month. I mean, we're just a month further down the road and a month behind. The school system is. And that could cost more money, but.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to speak on the motion to defer? If not, we're ready to vote. Madam Clerk, we'll have a roll call vote on this, if we can't get it on the board. So we're voting on and before we do, I want to ask Dan to make sure that we're procedurally properly in place. The motion to defer is a proper motion. So we have a confirmation on that. So when your name is called, vote yes to defer, no to go back to amendment number 1 from Commissioner Stewart. Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Anchor,
No.
Blaylock,
No.
Broughton,
No.
Cole, Colvin is absent. Crawford,
Yes.
Cross,
No.
Crosswhite. No. Gardner,
No.
George. Yes. Clever,
No.
Parker Road,
No.
Hutton,
No.
Jones,
Yes.
King,
No.
Leonard,
No.
Clark,
No.
Morrell,
No.
Show,
Yes.
Stanley. No. Starnes.
I'll abstain.
Stidham,
Yes.
Vance,
No.
Woods.
Yes.
Okay. Could I ask for clarification on the vote, please?
I'm sorry.
Could I ask for clarification on
Yeah,
someone's
yeah,
vote? George,
I was yes.
that's what I thought. And Glover, you were no?
No.
And Gardner, you were? I have 9 yes. Could we take another vote, please? I'm sorry, I missed.
Let's try this one more time. And I wish I could turn all your mics on, but I can't turn them all on at one time. I'm gonna give 5, so, when she calls your name, vote yes to defer to the next meeting, or no to return to amendment number 1.
I'm sorry. Akers? Blaylock? No. Broughton?
No.
Carlton? Absent. Cole?
No.
Crawford?
Yes.
Cross?
No.
Crosswhite? No. Gardner?
No.
George?
Yes.
Glover?
No.
Hargrove?
No.
Hutton?
No.
Jones?
Yes.
King?
No.
Leonard?
No.
Locke?
No.
Morrell?
No.
Show?
Yes.
Stanley? No. Starnes?
Abstain.
Stidham?
Yes.
Vance?
No.
Woods?
Yes.
No, 6 yes, 1 abstain, and 1 absent.
If you fail to receive a majority, the motion to defer is defeated. We're back on the amendment by Commissioner Stidham it's been so long, Gary, I'm going to ask you to restate your amendment, and we're going to vote on it unless we have a lot of discussion. Would you restate it?
Mayor, I'd like to pull that amendment.
You'd like to withdraw the
I'd
amendment?
like to withdraw it.
Without objection, Commissioner Stidham withdraws his amendment, and if I'm proper, we're back on the bill, or on the resolution. Now, I have a list, and I'm gonna recognize each one of you. If it's too late to talk, just tell me, and we'll go on to the next. And Commissioner Stanley, you're recognized on the resolution as presented.
Thank you, Chairman. My question, I have two, one for Dan. Is there any other part of the agreement that we have not fulfilled?
Well, I haven't heard of any accusations that we haven't fulfilled anything. The agreement, as I recall, and having read it, the only agreement the county had was the trunk lines, but, maybe seems like not that I know of, no. I've never heard anybody make that allegation. I'm not aware of any, no.
May I ask either Bill Sorrow or Mayor Robinson a question? Sorry, Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, Mayor.
That was good.
I think I've lost control. I turned off my mic, and I really didn't mean to, but we're in recess. Mr. Sora has agreed to answer a question.
Do you know about how many homes that you currently have on the route that we are proposing to put the sewer in?
No, I do not. And I think really the benefit for both the county and the city is not what's sewered now, but what can be sewered in the future. There are a number of farms there that I think you'll see with sewer available. You'll see a changing land use there, and I think you'll see rooftops in the future. Some of this area is inside Bristol's urban growth boundaries, some is not. As I've indicated before, I think we all win because those rooftops will shop in Bristol.
I understand, giving incentives and stuff to the new developers and stuff coming in, but as the annexation laws have changed over the last few years, are you going to have the current residents request to be annexed before they can hook up to the sewer?
No, as a matter of fact, the city-county sewer agreement specifically addresses that in that we can't make annexation a condition. We do
I think
offer.
that was before the law passed, so.
It was, in my opinion, and I'm practicing law without a license, but I think it would still hold. What we do have, though, you mentioned incentives, and we do have a sewer pipeline incentive for a new development. For example, a new developer would be responsible for all the infrastructure on a green field, for example. And so, now this area is not within our water district, so it wouldn't apply there. But from a sewer standpoint, then they would be provided the sewer pipe material and the manholes. They would be required to install it. They would be required to pay for the bedding envelope and so forth. And once it met city inspection, then we would reimburse them for the cost of the material element.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner King.
Thank you.
I got you now. Okay, you're on.
Thank you, Mayor. Since October, this sewer agreement and all this sewer, that's about all I've been thinking about. But anyway, trying to figure out what we need to do, how we need to do it, and so on. And, at some point in time, you just gotta make a decision and go on. And in my business, I do contracts every day. And when somebody comes up with a proposal or somebody comes up with an idea or something, I've got about 15 minutes to make my mind up whether I'm going to do it or I'm not. And I think this is where we're at now. Bristol has made us a proposal. It's in an area that we need sewer, and they're going to work with us on this. And phase one, if we do this, the money is going to come from the school system and about probably $500,000 of our own money. Otherwise, if we done that under Bristol, and one of their proposals, it'd be $1.5 million of new money that we would have to do for that proposal, phase one. So, in essence, we're gonna save, it's school money and it's some of our money, but we're not gonna have to come up the whole $1.5 million to do that. So in my thinking, I mean, I think we're gonna save $1.5 million that we would have to come up somewhere else to do. So that's one thing that I think we need to do. They made that proposal, and we either agree with it or we don't. And I think if we do that, we're gonna save $1.5 million. And we're all right now, that's all we're thinking about in this group is, you know, how are we gonna save money, how are we gonna come up with enough money to do all the projects that we're talking about. So, I think if we can save $1.5 million, we can move on, and we're gonna get our sewer line in. And then, if you go on down the road, and we're gonna have to amend, I think Dan's 100%, that we're gonna have 3 projects, or we're gonna amend, we're swapping. We're gonna take one project and swap for phase 1, second project for phase 2, the third for phase 3. And if that's $1 million, let's say the second project's another $1.5 million, we don't owe Bristol, so they put that line in. Then when they put the line in, then we owe them $1.5 million. Same way with the phase 3. When it goes in, then that's when we owe them the money. So that may be 2 years down the road, that may be 4 years down the road, or that may be never. They may not have the money to do it with. So, you know, we need to make a decision on this. We need to move forward, and I think let's vote on it and get this thing done and move forward, because, you know, we beat this thing since October, and, you know, let's make a decision and move on. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. King. Mr. George, you're on the resolution.
Thank you, Mayor. I totally agree with Dwight that we need to fund a sewer line to the school. My issue with this is that when I look at your resolution, Lord, you're asking us to change, this is a proposal to change the sewer agreement, which will then go to other parties and they'll decide if they want to do this or not. That doesn't accomplish anything in actually building a sewer line. The way, and I left early on the work session. So when you all are talking about that this proposal builds a line and Bristol's working with us, I need to understand, and I don't know exactly where it is in this, it says, you know, the bill earlier said we're gonna get a proposal to do whatever the best thing is to put sewer with our schools and in this area for further development. That proposal could come back at, you know, $1.5 million, it could come back at $8 million. We don't know that. And I know you've got some ideas on that, but I'm saying right now, to me, all the brains in this room, we don't have a concrete number. Now, in doing that, you're saying that we're gonna go in with phase 1 and put this in, we're taking some money from the school, it's gonna be about this much from us. I need, what I'm not understanding is, if we need to build a line to the schools and we're gonna take Matters and Craig, the school's gonna put in X number of dollars. What is the difference? What is Bristol doing? What are we doing? I can vote on that. Whatever those numbers are, I can vote on that. This amendment says we're gonna exchange projects and do this, but this has to be agreed on by other people. I mean, we can say we propose it, but nothing moves forward on actually building a sewer line at that point, unless, because that's not what this says. This says we're gonna go back to the other entity, that this body in Bristol wants to do this and believes one way, and it will then go to the other and they can talk about it. But there's nothing that I understand that says, when we get back from what we voted on earlier, Bristol is gonna agree to spend X number of dollars, the county is gonna put in X number of dollars, we're using school money to put in X number of dollars, and we're doing the project and getting this off of our discussion. This just says to me that we feel that 3 projects should be swapped, and the first one should be the school thing, take that to a whole other body, and see if they approve it, if they're willing to extend the sewer agreement, if they're willing to swap out projects. and that's out of our control. If Kingsport says, no, we're not willing, then all that talk about this amendment is for naught, and we don't have a sewer line. This is not accomplishing what I want to accomplish, which is having a sewer line for the school. And I don't see the correlation between the two. I want, Dwight's talking, and, you know, David's talking, I'm tired of talking about this. I want to vote. I'm willing to put money on the table and get rid of the school, and then if you all want to deal with the sewer agreement, you want to deal with everything else, great. But these are two different things. And I'm not saying I'm against these further projects, but all I want to do today, and all I wanted to do, is have, when you flush the commode at our school, it goes where it needs to go. And I don't understand the correlation of what Bristol's doing, what we're doing, what we're agreeing to. It's like Pat said, this doesn't spell that out to me. And voting on this waiver of rules just means that we take this to another body for another discussion. And I'm not an attorney, but that doesn't give the sewer. And that's why I have an issue with this proposal. I want something saying Bristol's gonna do this, this body is gonna put in X million dollars. If we have to raise taxes, I wanna know what we're raising taxes for. If I vote on this, I'd like you to say, we're gonna have to up taxes 6 cents to cover these projects in the next 2 years to get them done. Then I know what's on the table. But all I want is to get the sewer out of this room and out of this discussion. And I hope that the earlier proposal got us the numbers so we can vote on a path to do that.
Thank you,
Dan, you've got to be recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That was a good question by Commissioner George, and I would like to hope that maybe I can answer that, because I have tried to keep up with what I'm hearing, and here's my answer to that question. And again, this is what I've concluded. What we're going to do, let me set out what we're going to do, and then I'll give you the numbers. What we're going to do is we're going to substitute phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 for Paperville Knob, Beaver Creek Road, and Evans Creek phase 2 in the 2006 resolution. So what we end up with is, and the commissioner said that the county was not going to be exposed for any more money than the 1.5 for Paperville Knob, the 1.5 million for Beaver Creek, and the 1.25 million for Evans Creek. So here's where I think we are. Number one, phase 1 of Weaver Pipe Project will be substituted for Paperville Knob at the cost of $1.5 million, and the county will owe no more than that. That's what I heard the commissioner say. Phase 2 of Weaver Key Pipe Project will be substituted for Beaver Creek Road Project, again referring to the 2006 resolution, at a cost of $1.5 million and not to exceed $1.5 million as the county's obligation in that project. And phase 3 of the Weaver Pike project will be substituted for Evans Creek phase 2 at a cost of $1.25 million and not to exceed more than $1.25 million of the county's obligation. And that's it.
Okay. And voting any further to this would obligate us to that? Is that what you're saying?
I'm sorry?
If this passes here this evening, that would obligate us to the amounts you just said?
Yes, exactly. It would, subject, of course, to approval by Kingsport, Bluff City, and Bristol.
But it would go to them. Okay, thank you. Mr. Crawford.
Well, I think my question was answered there. That we will not spend any more than the 1.3 for phase 3 and 1.5 for phase 2. Is that correct?
That's, my understanding is from Bristol's perspective on that, that there wouldn't be any more expected of the county than what was agreed on in the original 96 agreement. That we're, just like Dan said, we're trading out those projects.
See, if that was in this resolution, I think we could have solved a whole lot of discussion here tonight.
I thought it was plainly stated in the first paragraph, but what this resolution was doing. In order to get the ball rolling, like we had to, in order to get things happening, we actually, even to begin to talk about the monies involved or any of that, according to the agreement, we have to go through this process of trading out one project for another. Otherwise, the county sewer agreement, from the way I read it, then this phase one, if you did it on its own, would be a new project tying into the city of Bristol. If you added east and all that other pieces together, this allows a transfer of what was already in the agreement from, what was it, 90 or 80, what is it, 2006.
Well, I've never seen that agreement, so I was unaware, and due to our discussion, I've learned a lot about what projects were, the cost and everything. But what's gonna happen if phase two comes in at 2.5 million?
Well, I think at that point, then the county has an obligation to say, we don't have the money to do it. And the city of Bristol says, I mean, that's how this document's saying, is like, we can put these phases together, based on how finances allow. Like, the city's not gonna, Bristol's not gonna force the county to do these. They're willing to work with the county to make it happen.
So phase two comes along, it's 2.5, 2.8 million. We can't afford that. So we vote, we're not gonna do it. Bristol votes, they're not gonna do it. What's gonna happen to phase three then?
Then we wouldn't do it. That's what I'm saying, like, we do these phases as the finances allow us to do.
I think that answers many questions tonight.
Yeah, we're not, I don't see that this agreement, this resolution is obligating the county to anything other than what's already been obligated under previous resolutions, the 2006 agreement. And that's.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Crawford. Commissioner King, you're recognized.
Can we call Bill Sore to the podium and let him verify what was just said by our mayor? Can we, they're in agreement with what he just said. Did we hear that from Bristol?
Bill, we've recognized the city manager Sore several times, and I'd be happy to do that. We'll recess, Bill.
Bill, we'll get you a seat.
Thank you. I have discussed this individually with council. We have not taken official action. The mayor is here. I have had nothing but support from our members of council regarding this matter.
So bottom line is, the three figures for the three phases is what we owe and not a dime more. Is that correct?
That would be correct. Matter of fact, we might even have a better deal than that. What we have calculated is there was an original $10.5 million commitment in the original agreement. We have calculated, based on three projects that have been completed, $6,664,687, which would leave a remaining amount of $3,835,312. That would hit the 10.5 that was committed in the original agreement.
Well, we're 500,000 off here somewhere.
Well, again, you've got the school resources that are coming into that piece also.
Okay, all right.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to call.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I call for the question.
I'm going to turn you on to we keep turning. Okay, there you go. And Commissioner Hutton wants to call the question. I think we discussed this. So I don't think we need to vote on call the question. I think everybody really vote on it. I hope you know what you're voting on. So, we've got a good discussion. This is on the board. Commissioner Hutton renews his motion to read the introduction and adoption of item number 14, seconded by the various commissioners, White, King, Hurst, Glover. We're ready to vote. On the board open, cast your vote. Require 16 votes to pass. Is everyone voting?
yes, 1 abstain, 1 absent.
Having received the necessary majority, item number 14 is adopted. Next up, item number 15, and that is sponsored by Commissioner John Ross. Commissioner Shaw, for what reason?
This resolution,
This resolution, I'm sorry, Pat, you're just always early on the button.
yeah, I'm paying attention.
There you go, now, we're ready to go. Mr. Broughton, you're recognize you. You're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. This resolution has come to pass, it's been talked about for years, but it's come to pass basically due to the last resolution we just talked about. You know, over and over and over, we're hearing the word regionalism and trying to work together. And in order to do so, we're gonna have to sit down and have conversations with our neighbors and talk to them and just see, you know, why are we doing things the way we're doing them? And that's the intent of this resolution. Sullivan County itself, 911 system, has 4 separate buildings. It doesn't even have one building itself. Each one of those buildings has a UPS, that's an uninterrupted power supply, in case folks didn't know what that was. That's so the equipment has to run all the time. They have to have a UPS backup system. And each one of our 4 buildings just in this county do it. If we could consolidate, and that's why we want to look at this, maybe it'll be a great idea, maybe it isn't, but we've got to talk to the neighbors to see. And I've developed the resolution. I talked to every single person on here. Mr. Sora was really nice to talk to. Mr. Fleming was really nice to talk to. Jeff Cassidy and I texted back and forth, so that was very informal. But everyone on here, the only addition I'd like to make, I'd like to add Hunter Locke on here as well for his experience and for the fact that maybe if the committee would allow when we get together, I'd kind of like to put John Gardner over it to let him coordinate everything, and then that way Hunter could be more of a thing. So, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. That'll be something the committee will decide. That's not something the commission will decide. The funny thing about this, when I brought it up, you would think with all the regionalism talk that everybody would be all in for it. But I immediately started getting excuses as to why it wouldn't work. You know, when I was growing up, I was told can't do anything. So, you know, if we want to even think about anything, we're going to have to talk. And I'm open to any questions anybody's got.
Mr. Broughton, did you want to introduce this on first reading or waive the rule?
Well, I'd like to do waiver of rules, Mayor, if you don't mind.
Commissioner Broughton moved to waive the rule for the immediate introduction and adoption of item number 15, seconded by Commissioner Blaylock, Hartwell, Cole, Stanley. Broughton is over. Mr. Shaw, you're.
Thank you, Mayor. I support this. I just have a question. The Chief Administrative Officer for Sullivan County Emergency Communications District, is that Jim Bean?
No, that's Jim Smith.
Exactly. Okay, then I would recommend that you add Jim Bean.
Okay. I'll accept that recommendation.
Let the record show that the list of participants is increased by Jim Beam. And Todd, did you want to add Hunter on this list? Or
Yes.
Okay. Hunter Locke, Commissioner Hunter Locke, and EMA director Jim Beam. Yes. Okay. Without objection, Commissioner Akers, you're recognized.
Yeah, thank you. I think you started to answer some of my questions. So you have reached out to some of these people. I mean, I take it for granted. You call 911, someone answers the phone, you know.
Yeah.
So
theoretically, yes.
Yeah. So, you know, because this was a new resolution, or I wasn't here last Thursday. So you have spoken to these, or their people, and kind of
Except for the last person we just added, I talked to each
Yeah.
one of those persons individually and explained to them my way of thinking, and each one of them said, you're right, we need to sit and talk. You know, this is not a done deal, that if we come to, you know, we would like, and I know I've been explaining, you know, 911 is kind of like utility, they have their own board, I get all that. But it would be nice to go to them and say, hey, you know, we come to this, here's a recommendation we have for you, we hope you accept it, we can't make you, but we hope you would, or we understand why things are separate, what can we do just to make it better?
Thank you. Commissioner King, you're recognized. If you won't push your button, I won't push mine.
I'll push.
There you go.
There we go.
You're right.
Todd, have you talked to the board, I mean, have you actually went to the board meeting and sat down and talked to them and asked them these questions that you're asking?
The 911 board? No,
Yes.
sir. No, I've just talked to the local directors, and I have not talked to the board. And the reason I haven't is because I didn't know what to talk to the board about. I thought if we formed a committee first and just talked, it's nothing formal. Then we would know what to talk to the board about.
If you went to the board and asked a few questions, you might get the answers that you're looking for before we do all this. Another thing is, you know, we get state money for 911. When you start messing with their money and start dividing it up, how much is Sullivan County going to end up with? That's another question you need to look about.
That's why we need a committee. And one thing that I'm hoping Sullivan County ends up with, and by saying Sullivan County, I mean Sullivan County, Kingsport, and Bristol, is more money. That's the driving factor behind this. Like I said, just in our part of it, we have 4 separate buildings, each one of those with their own UPS system. You and I both know it's gotta be cheaper to have it under one.
And I agree with you 100%, but wouldn't it be courteous to go to the board and sit down, why have you got 4 buildings? Can we do something about these 4 buildings?
Well, and what we can do, they're more than welcome to come to the committee and explain
I
it
think you
to
need
us.
to go to them. If you're gonna mess in our business, you need to go talk to them.
Well,
And I'm not against what you're trying to do, all I'm saying, you need to, you know, there's a board there, and for a reason.
I hear you, and if we have a committee, then they'll have an open door to talk to us too. So it's a two-way road. I hear what you're saying. I just feel like, you know, you'd have to go to each 911 board, because Bristol has one, Kingsport has one. So why not have a committee, let them come to us, might be easier for everybody.
And it may be, a situation like we had tonight with the sewer deal. It might get muddier than you want it to be. So that's,
And if that's the case, then we need to quit saying the word regionalism, if that's the case.
I'm done.
Mr. Hartgrove, you're recognized.
Well, this has been an ongoing problem for parts of this county for many, many years. I mean, there's been emergencies, been delayed because of the different areas that a person lives in, whether it be inside the city or outside the city. It just depends on how the call is transferred. And so I really feel like that this is a necessity to look into. And the reason is that we're all trying to not only help response times to emergency calls, which would be an improvement, but also it would be a cost savings that we could sure use. Whenever you duplicate services, you're going to spend more money. That's all there is to it. And, you know, I'm glad to see that we're working with Bristol on this sewer situation. We could also work with Bristol as well as Kingsport on this 911 situation. It shouldn't be a delay for an emergency to be responded to based on where you live. It should be that information is all we need to get to your residence if you're having an emergency. But to ask, are you in the county or are you in the city? You need to be referred to Bluntville if you're in the county. You know, that's happened many, many times. And it's sometimes, very tragic event takes place. So this is not just a problem to solve, trying to save money. This is more of a bigger issue of trying to help save lives. And that's what this is all about. I agree with you, Dwight. The 911 board has been approached by many different times and different people and emergency agencies. But they seem to have a strong understanding of disputed territory. They are going to take care of this territory, other one's going to take care of that territory, and they don't want nobody messing up with that. And that's just bad politics, political. It's what it basically is. And politics should be the last thing that is considered when you've got lives being lost. So I think this is a good resolution.
I hope to be a co-sponsor on this.
And, you know, we've got agencies that we can go to and get all kinds of data. 911 dispatch center, we can pull all kinds of records and show you how much delay times that we're talking about. And this right here is more important to me, of allowing a person when they are in a true emergency get the fastest response time possible. And if this would help that, I don't see how you'd be against it.
Well, I'm gonna support this resolution. I kinda agree with Mr. King, is that the 911 is a utility district. Okay? We as county commissioners, we confirm the appointment to the 911 board. So the 911 board members over there. But when you look at the list of people, the city manager of the city of Kingsport, he works for the mayor and the city council of Kingsport. The city manager of Bristol works for the city council. The 911 directors work for the 911 boards, okay? I think you would be better off to amend this to say that you request the 911 boards to serve as the chairman or their designee. Because the 911 directors are not going to do anything the 911 board doesn't allow them to do. The city managers probably are not going to address it unless the city council encourages him or appoints someone at the 911 boards there. So I think you're asking people to sit there, and I agree with it. The first thing we need to do in Sullivan County, we need to combine the Sullivan County 911 to the sheriff's department. Okay, that needs to be the first step, so you don't have a duplication of expense. And I think there is some discussion being going on currently with the county Sullivan County 911 and Sheriff Cassidy. He's very willing to work in these situations. But to combine this in as one countywide or two dispatch centers or however it works to, eventually I've heard state law is going to force the 911 districts back into one district. Okay? So even with legislation coming, it's a good resolution to get prepared, start moving in that direction on however legislation does. Another thing that you gotta understand, we're gonna have to build a jail. That's the next resolution coming up. So there's opportunities to combine and have a facility to house all that. So it's a great resolution, but I think asking the city managers and asking the 911 directors to really to be on there, I think I would change that language to the 911 chairman.
How about I meet you halfway and add them to the list?
Okay.
Add the chairman or their designee to the
I think
list.
knowing how Sullivan County 911 and 911 boards, those 911 directors are not gonna step on the ledge unless that director and that board says, yes, we want you to participate in it. Okay, so let's be fair to them to bring it to them. So I think it's got a lot of merit. So if you'll make those amendments, awesome.
Fair enough, Mayor. Let me add the 911 directors and or their designated.
I object to the last.
And the city manager and her designee.
Well, I've got I've got our pro tem, and I've got the city managers. Do they not represent the city mayors?
The mayor, the city manager work as, or the approval of the city council and the mayor. So if he came down to do this, he needs the
Probably have to turn it over, Mark.
You can ask Bill back there, he probably would want the city council to support his efforts to serve on that committee.
Can we bring Mr. Sore up, or we'll let him
I have absolutely no control over this. Bill, you're right, I'm not even gonna reset.
And what's the question? I'm sorry.
The question I had is this resolution here is the city manager of the city of Bristol or his designee to sit on the committee to look at 911 consolidation.
I think that would be okay. I think that's okay. You know, similar committee, the city county sewer agreement, and I sat on that actually as a city manager's designee at that time. But you're right, in terms of organizational structure, I certainly work for a mayor and a city council and follow their direction.
So you think it's okay to include you in on this committee, or
I would think so.
and that's not going to put you in an awkward situation?
No, I don't think so. And I assume Jeff Fleming didn't feel so either, or he would have expressed that.
Any other questions? Okay, if you've got a question for Bill, I'm gonna jump it around. Bill, why he's still up there?
This really isn't a question, but since Bill's been up there all night, what y'all don't know is about 2 years ago, he retired from refereeing football. So this has been good exercise for him all night long and everything. So he's probably really enjoyed having all those questions and everything.
Thank you. That's good. Sam, do you have a question for Bill, or can we?
No,
Thank you, Bill.
good.
Thank you.
First thing, Sam, you're recognized.
I support doing the study. I mean, we've gone from 10 to, it looks like, at least 16 on this board. And you made a statement back a couple of months ago, you weren't gonna vote on any waiver of rules. That come up this just got laid on my desk tonight, and I've got 3 more here, and I don't know if they're gonna ask for waiver of rules or not. I actually like to see this just on first reading, so we can look at it. I mean, if we've been looking at this for a long time, why is it suddenly we got to vote on it and get it in an hour?
I'll address that. I did make that statement, and Mr. Street explained to me, he said, you're right. He goes, but sometimes that's just the way we do business. And the reason there's a time frame on it is because they want to know, in case something does happen, that we can look at it at budget time. That's the rush.
Mr. Starr, you're right.
Thank you. Going back to something that Terry said, seconds count when you all know this. But and I don't want to bring light to tragedy, but I read in the paper or saw on TV in that shooting in Colonial Heights that Kingsport City responded first instead of Sullivan County when it was hours all along. Now, my question is, what if something would have happened to one of their policemen? Would we have been appalled, or, you know, I think this is a good thing.
Commissioner Locke, you're recognized.
The protocol and SOGs and SOPs were changed about a year and a half ago within county dispatch and central dispatch on dispatch procedures. So whenever a call is put into 911, whoever picks that call up, whether it be city or county, they will dispatch the appropriate agencies and not roll the call. That's why the city police department responded to a county call, is because central answered the call first. Same way on EMS and fire. If it's a city call, but it rings to county dispatches that call. They don't roll them for a delayed response anymore. So I just wanted to put that out there. But there's still a lot of progress to be made within dispatch in whole, both county and city.
Thank you. Dan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We just need to clarify who's on this committee. I know we added Commissioner Locke and Jim Bean, and I guess my question is, we decided not to add the mayors, but we did add the chairman, but I guess, is that correct, chairman of 911 boards? Are we substituting them in and taking the chief administrative officers out, or are we leaving both in?
I say we leave them all in, that way, you know, because there's gonna be some folks that can't make a meeting anyway, so, you know, number-wise, it's probably not gonna be that big.
We got clear on?
Yes.
Okay, any further questions for the sponsor?
I'd just like to thank, you know, everybody for their input, and I'd like to hope that we can support this, because, you know, this might be one of the few things we can do that saves money and lives. And thank you for your consideration.
Sponsor renews his motion for the immediate introduction and adoption of item number 15, seconded by various commissioners. We're ready to vote. The board opens up, cast your vote, requires 16 votes for passage. Has everyone voted? Anyone wish to change the vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
22 yes, 1 abstain, 1 absent.
Have received necessary majority. Item 15 is adopted. Next up, item 16, Commissioner Aker. You are recognized. Let me get your turn down. There you go. Thanks. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor Venable. As you all know, I'm really excited about when we have to authorize micromanaged copier leases. And so I jumped on the chance to bring us this resolution tonight. And so our elections office, I'll read the highlights here. Resolution to authorize the purchasing agent to enter into a lease of a copier for the Sullivan County Election Commission. I did find out some of the specifications of the machine. It will be 26% faster for them to print off, but unfortunately, our lines will not be 26% faster at the election ballot, probably. It is with RJ Young Company, who's actually doing some really good cost savings for the county. As we all know, the sheriff's office did a really good job there. This is just for one machine. The lease is running out, so that's why we had to get it on here kind of late for tonight's agenda. And the new one, $101.73. It actually went up $2 because it's a much better machine and everything. And so, you know, so yeah, I don't think we can do away with rules because of the contract, but we had to get it on for tonight for everything. And so I appreciate y'all's support on this.
Did I hear you would waive the rule?
What council can?
You can.
Oh, can we?
Yeah, we can.
Dan says we can, we can. And I would like to.
And your request to waive the rule for immediate introduction and adoption, second by Commissioner Stanley. Any questions? Commissioner King, your question.
Yes, sir. I'd like to make a motion to defer this for next month. I've enjoyed seeing Mr. Brewer back here in the back.
We'll get him back again.
And he's really enjoyed his time with us at this commission. So I'd like to see him back next month.
Okay.
But I will withdraw my motion.
All right, Commissioner Glover, you're recognized.
Mr. Miller, would you answer a question for me? This copper does not have to have any type of sewer hookup, does it?
I just want to say that the answer to your question is no, but all of this hazing needs to actually go on the sponsor of the resolution, because this is his first resolution. Since he's been elected to the county commission, so he needs the attention. He's got all the information.
Mr. Akert, is Bristol willing to step in and help us with this sewer line and this copper if possible?
I will take it under advisement.
Mr. Brewer, I didn't release you. It's all right, Jason. I just happened to see you up there after being here for 9 years.
Yeah, we're silly. No, RJ Young, I will, but this is serious. RJ Young is really working with I don't know if it's a coordinated effort or how it's all worked out with a lot of our departments. One of our other departments may have a resolution come forward, or they may not have to, because we may actually get a free copier because of this one for one of our departments. And so we're really, no, it's something we gotta do. Larry Bailey explained to me why we have to micromanage these contracts, and so, you know, it is.
Well taken. No further questions. We're ready to vote on item number 16. The board open, please cast your vote. Require 16 votes for passage. There's one vote. Anyone wants to change the vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
22 yes, 1 abstain, 1 absent.
Having received necessary majority, item number 16 is adopted. Congratulations. Next up, item number 17, and Commissioner Vance, you're recognized on item number 17.
Mr. Chairman, are you wanting this resolution to try to go through tonight, or are you wanting it on first reading? This is a resolution.
Let me look at the next one. I've not marked these, Mark. Mark, let's discuss it and you make a motion for adoption. I believe this is one to bear some discussion.
Okay. Well, let me read the resolution on that guide. This resolution to enter a contract for professional services to assess the needs of Sullivan County Jail, whereas resolution in 2016 approved the Sullivan County Board of Commissioners on January 17, 2017 to authorize the purchase agent and the county mayor to solicit a request for qualification to obtain professional services to assess the structural and engineering integrity of the current jail and assess the needs of the jail facility for either expansion or for new construction. And whereas the purchasing agent has received requests for qualification from multiple companies and has interviewed and evaluated these companies, and that whereas Michael Brady Incorporated Architectural and Engineering has been chosen as a firm to provide such professional assessment services to Sullivan County. Now therefore be it resolved, the Sullivan County Board of Commissioners, assembled in regular session, hereby approves Sullivan County Mayor and the purchasing agent Christine, I didn't know her name was Christina, Chris Davis, to enter into the contract with Michael Brady, MBI, to perform such professional service to assess the need of improve or expand the current jail and to make recommendations for construction, expansion, renovation as necessary based upon their assessment. Now therefore be resolved that Sullivan County Commission approves funding this project phase in an amount not to exceed $225,000.
Thank you, Mark. Mr. Vance moves for the immediate introduction and adoption of item number 17, seconded by Commissioner Gardner. And if I may, Mark, well, let me recognize Commissioner Shaw. Commissioner Shaw, you have a question.
Thank you, Mayor. This is for either you or Dan, whichever you believe is appropriate. But refresh my memory, when our purchasing agent goes through this process, she's not required to accept the lowest bid, right?
No. If I may answer, and Dan, you correct me if I'm wrong. This is pursuant to a resolution adopted in the last commission of phase 1, 2, and 3 of the particular construction of a correction facility for Sullivan County. This is phase 1. We interviewed 4 architectural firms. The committee put together by Ms. Davis, myself, Mr. Bailey, the sheriff, and his representative, and scored those interviews and discussed them at length. They actually had an interview with all 4. We scored them, had a meeting, and decided that Michael Brady, MBI, Inc., best fit the needs for Sullivan County at this point in time, to be the architect for this project.
Okay, but the regulations that we operate under allows discretion in
Professional services, yeah.
which firm is selected, right?
And I think Dan would affirm that, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Crawford, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Where is this firm located?
Knoxville.
Knoxville. What is their expertise in this area of architectural work? Do they work mainly with jails, or are they open to other construction or designs? What is their expertise for doing this assessment?
They have considerable experience. We have, I don't know if Mr. Latham is prepared to talk about it tonight, but we do. Oh, I'm sorry, we have Jay here. We have representative here. Jay, I didn't see you, said by Roy, but this is a representative of Michael Brady Inc. and MBI. Jay, you're recognized to cover Mr. Crawford's question, if you would.
Thank you. Our firm has been involved in multiple jail and justice projects. In Campbell County, it was the Justice Center, which was jail and courts. In Anderson County, was expansion of their jail. Monroe County, we're currently got a construction of Justice Center there that's got 365 beds and full courts. Loudoun County, we're expanding their jail at this time. We've been working with Blount County on doing a program similar to this, where they're looking at expanding the jail and or do a transition center. Just been meeting last night with folks in Morgan County. I've been working with folks with Cobb County for a couple of years, and they're looking for how they're going to finance something of that nature. So we've worked with multiple jails. That's myself and our company. We use a company that works with us. We work hand in hand with Trainer HL. The folks I work with there, that's all they do every day through the year. And the gentleman I work with, he's been doing it for probably about 20, 25 years. That's all he does every day is justice centers and detention centers.
How close will you be working with the Sheriff's Department to assess the needs as to where you're going to make recommendations?
Very close. We work with them and count on getting data back from them that we help access to help project out what the inmate projections are for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. We talk with them about alternates for incarceration and things that might reduce the numbers or at least slow down the growth of the numbers of the inmates that's going to jail. We try to look at it a holistic approach. And as I said, with Blount County, we're actually working at the Transition Center, which is a facility that's going to be for folks that have drug addictions, alcohol addictions, mental health addictions. That's a big portion of the people that's in jail. I mean, that may be 85% of the people that's in jail. And as some of you may have friends or maybe even family members, you know that being hooked on drugs anymore isn't just the folks in the back alleys. It's sometimes for some of the folks you know. So it's not always really bad folks. They just do some bad things.
What time element are you looking at in your assessment?
The assessment at Blount County, we had scheduled for 6 months. It actually took about 7 months. We probably can do it as little as 5 months. That really depends on how quickly we get some of the data from the Sheriff's Department. And also, we usually recommend that there be about 3 committees put together that we're working with, one of them being on the law enforcement side, one being on the justice side, the courts. Obviously, Mr. Court Attorney have impact of what goes on, and one that sort of straddles the two so that no one side is making the decision. We don't make the decision. We try to find the right solution for you, and we're directing that process.
And we would have commissioners on each of those committees, Commissioner?
Yes, I would recommend commissioners, I would recommend judges, I would recommend people from jail. I would recommend, if you can get them involved, people that's in mental health here, people that's involved with the drug addiction, a real cross section of all the folks that have to deal with folks that are in jail and going through the justice system.
Mr. Draper, you have a question, sir? Yeah?
Yeah, since this resolution is following a resolution from a couple of years ago, was there money earmarked to pay for this, or is this just brand new money we're voting on?
This would be the new money. Mr. Bradley?
At the time the resolution was voted on, somewhere over a year ago, it was brought up, we knew all we could do was get started. And so at that time, we appropriated money just to continue the fiscal year. We knew that it was going to be greater. We didn't know how to include how much it's going to be. We did not quote anything. So we passed a resolution, and but now we will be starting basically with one amount of money. It's $100,000 that we run it, since we didn't do anything as of June 30th, we took that, didn't carry that amount forward, we could have, this would be new money.
Thank you. Mr. George, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. And this is just because I don't know the answer. It says the request for qualifications were requested and they've been interviewed and evaluated. As commissioners, do we get anything that shows who applied and what the evaluations were, or any information on why this particular company was chosen over another, or do we just, is it just that the resolution comes through naming one?
Well, the process has been that. The process has been that, but certainly we would share with you, with the commission, and any commissioner that has a question about who was interviewed, who, I think we had about 7 that applied, and we interviewed 4. So any commissioner would like to look at that, I think.
I'd be interested in seeing that data, just to look at, because I just didn't know how this,
Yeah,
I'm not used to not getting data with things. I know it's a different change and I'm learning, but just to kind of look at what was important so I know kind of what path they're going down.
I think Ms. Davis, I'd be happy to share that. It's not generally made public, but we'd be happy to share with any commissioners that would like to talk with Chris. Be happy to do that. And you can see the rating process and what the committee that was put together, how they rated, and then basically how we reached the final decision. We don't build each other very often, so this is kind of a new process, but we obviously want to keep the commission involved in every step of this way. That's why the 3 committees that Jay mentioned, we want commissioners involved in those. But the process that we've gone through is open. So just let us know. Let me know. I'll schedule the appointment or whatever. Any further questions for the sponsor? Vance, you're recognized.
Well, I understand a lot of people about spending the money, but we've got to do something about the jail. I think we discussed that in the work session. So if there's no other questions about this, I guess this is the first phase of trying to deal with the jail crowd issue. So if there's no more questions, I'd like to have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Looks like we're ready to go. The board is clear. So item 17, Commissioner Vance moves to waive the rule for immediate introduction and adoption by number 17. Second by Commissioner Gardner. When the board requires 16 votes for passage, when the board opens, please cast your vote. Has everyone voted? Anyone wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, take vote.
19 yes, 1 abstain, 3 no, 1 absent.
Having received the necessary majority, item number 17 is adopted. Commissioner Vance, you're recognized on item 18, and I believe this is on first reading. Without objection, item 18 on first reading.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I have a verbal motion I would like to discuss at the end of the commission meeting. That's your privilege, sir.
I'm sorry?
I would like to bring up a verbal motion.
That's fine. The floor is open for that. We've completed our resolution agenda, and Mr. Vance is...
Okay, I want to, first of all, in this motion that I'm going to make, I've discussed with some of you all, and first of all, this is not to criticize anything that has taken place in the past. And I think we all, probably including myself, will do a little bit better. But my motion is to request, for the operating of this commission, motion to request all resolutions to be submitted to the county mayor's office by noon on Wednesday prior to the work session. the work session resolutions to be emailed to the county commission by 5 p.m. on Wednesday prior to Thursday's work session. And the reason I say that is we're bringing in, I'm just as bad for it, because I brought one in today, I brought two in today, y'all didn't get to see it, they're on the agenda. So I'm trying to do better myself, because I think that it would help me personally, instead of coming here to the work session and having resolutions I've had an opportunity to read or not read. So to help the staff and the mayor's office, and to help us have this stuff adequate time enough to look at this stuff so that we can ask questions about it before we get in here, to department heads and whoever it may be, it may help. Also, that's one motion I have. And also the other motion is any new resolution submitted after noon on Wednesday will be placed on first reading at the following commission meeting. So that if you have a late resolution coming in, then by next Thursday at the full commission meeting, then they would have an opportunity to get it to us before we have our full commission meeting. In other words, we would not see it. If it come in at 3 o'clock on Wednesday prior to the work session, we would get it next week to go to the full commission and it'd be considered as first reading. And then if you want to make a waiver, but I think that if I got the docket a little bit sooner and had an opportunity to read it, it would may help me out. So I've got that motion, I've got it written down, Mr. Mayor, and I think it'll help you.
Second that motion.
File that with clerk, and we have a motion properly before the commission second. Crawford, Sullivan, Blaylock, okay, we have a proper motion on the floor, Mr. Shaw.
I think this is the definition of irony, because you realize that your motion violates your motion. You got that, right?
Yeah. Not until next time.
I mean, I believe
This resolution don't go into play until next month.
We'll bring it in the.
Then I'll be 1 month ahead.
I think I prefer to see it in writing. And I believe that Sam Jones is right on target when he said this voting on waiver of the rules ought to really be an exception, not the common practice.
Okay, good discussion. Commissioner Glover, you're recognized.
When was these two resolutions wrote up and entered? The last two that we just done?
These are verbal. Oh, we talking about this?
It is a motion, it's not a resolution.
I got called on that 3 o'clock session.
It is a motion.
We didn't even see these, or didn't have any idea that they were even on the docket? No idea. So, and we just voted to spend $225,000, drop of that. And we talked about the sewer agreement for 3 months. Pat, this is gonna be really something. I agree with you. I agree with you.
You're growing up.
I mean.
I think you just blew it back.
Don't touch it, Pat. Why don't we defer these two resolutions to next month then?
You can, just vote.
That's what we're getting ready to vote on. Mr. Broughton, you're recognized.
Just echoing everything else, and like I told Mr. Jones earlier, he's right. You know, when you're in Rome, do like the Romans do. So, but it's time to fix that. If Mr. Vance will wait on this resolution until next month, I'll co-sponsor it, but I can't support it tonight based upon our discussions there.
Well, this is just a verbal motion. This doesn't take a resolution. It's just that we're agreeing this is how we want the resolutions to be handled going forward.
Put the resolution for next month.
Well, I mean, does it need to be a resolution or be a motion? Okay, we'll put a resolution.
And I'll co-sponsor it for you.
Okay.
I like the discussion, and I'm sorry that let it happen. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been doing this coming up on 25 years. I guess what I'm saying is we have a rule of this body that says no resolution will be passed on first reading, and we override that all the time. So, passing another resolution that says, again, we won't do this, we override it, we'll override it, and I think you'll find that you're gonna fall right back to the same old practice, and, that's just the way we do business. We've got a resolution, it says you can't pass anything on first reading, but we override it all the time.
Mr. Street, my motion that I presented to the clerk has nothing to do about passing resolution on first reading. All it is about filing resolutions and getting resolutions sent to the commissioners.
I think there's already one that exists that says, I think there's one that already exists that says exactly, I think it was filed by Commissioner Duvall about 30 years ago.
Well, you pull that.
We can pull that and advise the commission. Okay, we've still got people want to talk about this. Commissioner Hutton, Dr. Hutton, you're recognized.
I agree with Commissioner Broughton on this. If it comes back next month, that would be better. That's just I have a question. Did we skip 18? Or did I miss it completely? Item number 18, are we on there now?
It went first reading.
First reading.
18 did?
Yeah.
I thought, I'm sorry, I must have taken to that. But I don't know, but, I do. Well, we haven't talked about 18. Okay, I'm not.
I recognize Commissioner Bass on 18, and if it's on first reading.
And I said first reading.
I said without objection.
Okay, I didn't hear all that, that went pretty fast.
See, to defend myself, when I got called about this resolution, they said we needed to do something about 17, so that's why I asked for the discussion and the vote. So I'm not trying to push 18 through the next month, so it's on first reading.
Well, I would like to ask about something later on after you've dealt with this.
About procedural rule. That's fine. Whatever you want to ask, we'll deal with it.
Well, after we deal with this.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, not discussion on that. Mr. George.
I do like that Mark put this out there. I think it would be wonderful to have these. I made the decision personally that anything that was at my desk when I got here, that if I had not been emailed, had a chance to read, that I'm just going to abstain. Because I don't have the background to come in here and vote on anything that is just explained to me while I'm sitting here. And, I think we all need to look at this personally and make the decision. And if we don't police ourselves making a motion, we'll just override it and we'll continue to do exactly what we fuss at other organizations for doing, which is bringing everything that we have to do at this very minute, we have to override. And since I've been on this committee, it seems the majority of everything is a waiver of rules. And I personally just made the decision, and that's why I'm abstaining from all these late ones, because I can't read it with everybody talking here, and I know y'all love to explain it to me, but I have to process things with that, and I have to be able to read it and ask questions. So I will, go with any motion, but I'm afraid that we'll continue to do what we've been doing unless everyone here really decides that we're gonna do business a different way. And I said, personally, any of y'all that put anything that I don't get till I sit here, I don't care how brilliant, wonderful, fabulous it is, I will abstain on it until I have time. That's just gonna be my policy. So that's because I just don't have the background to do these in 10 minutes.
Well, I want to iterate on this. This is one of the reasons I brought this up, and this, like I said, this is no disrespect to anybody, because everybody did a great job. Is I called the mayor's office and said, when are we going to get a work session docket? And I'm in sales and I'm on the road a lot. And she was trying to get all that stuff put together, but there's still stuff coming in. And this was getting close to noon. And so, by the time I got here on work session night, the resolutions were laying on my desk. And so, I'm like you, I got them all at one time, and I was confused because I didn't have a chance to read that stuff and try to comprehend it. And because if we're sitting there keep funneling stuff in and she can't get it out, we need to cut a deadline saying, if it's not in here by 12 o'clock, it's not going to be on the work session. it will go to the full commission meeting the next Thursday as first reading, and then you'll have an opportunity to discuss it in here. Or we'll get our resolution package for the full commission meeting on Wednesday of the following week. Just give us a little bit of time to be able to see this stuff and kind of study this stuff and ask questions before we come here and have it all bombarded on us. So we need to be fair to Angela and the mayor's office and not trying to get her to put all this stuff in to get it on the agenda, because I'd have to run back to my office before I come here to print it off, and then I may not get there. So Angela said very nicely, she said, well, Mark, I'll try it. If I can't get it all done, I'll have it on your desk for you. Well, we're putting her in that situation. I don't think that's fair to her, and I don't think it's helping us.
Thank you, Commissioner, or County Attorney Street, you has to be recognized, and I think this is the proper time for you to go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say again, we have that resolution. It's called "No Resolution Can Be Passed on First Reading." It achieves what y'all are talking about. It's just that we override it all the time. But I did want to take this opportunity to point out, and you may already know it, but the way the law is, an abstention counts as a no vote. There are provisions that you can not abstain, what's it called? It's a different word, but anyway, you have to specific, what? No, it's in the statute. How, what?
Deferred.
It's based on a conflict. You can declare a conflict, and if you do that, then your vote doesn't count, and all of a sudden we drop down to 23 votes, and so then it only takes 12. But if you simply abstain, it basically counts as a no vote. And I just want to make sure everybody knows that. In case you're thinking your vote doesn't count, that's not true. An abstention doesn't achieve that purpose.
Thank you, Dan. That's a good clarification. Sam, you're recognized.
I just wanted to be clear because it didn't say it in the resolution, and I know Mr. Bailey talked about item 17. But should it not say in the resolution that those funds are coming from the undesignated fund balance? That's where I assume they're coming from.
Yes, it would be.
It would.
Larry's answer was yes, it would be. And,
Okay, I never heard that discussed. I just heard, well, it's new money, but.
Well, the answer was is that the previous commission appropriated a figure which happened to be $100,000 without knowing what that was going to cost. So that was not expended. It was not carried over. So it is new money. Larry, you will add to that.
I don't have anything to add to that.
That's it. Right. That's, okay. Commissioner Hargrove, we've got a motion on the floor. And I don't know how in the world we got.
Well, I was going to speak about the motion.
So speak about the motion, please. Nobody else has.
I know we all say we're going to do this or do that, and we end up not doing it. And as Dan said, that we do have a resolution that could cover what the motion is. I don't like being backed up into a corner, though. And if it's something like, for example, Mr. King brought up a certain piece of property that come available, and maybe it was only brought into light in a very short process before we have the commission meeting. I think we could do both, achieve both measures to where we still stay within our rules, but if we have to try to bypass the rules, we've got to convince 16 commissioners to do so. So maybe, so to speak, the commissioners may not think it's as important as what you might think it is. And just like with a resolution, that I may think it's something that needs to be passed with waiver of rules, before I can do that, I've got to have a vote from my fellow commissioners, and that I've got to get 16 votes to agree with me that we go ahead and do waiver of rules. I think that would solve the issue. if everybody feels like that they want to try to stay within the rules of this commission, but at least give us a angle to where as something is desperately needed for the good of this county, and it would not be beneficial to pass it up, seemingly we would probably all agree that we need to go ahead and take action. So you wouldn't have a problem with 16 votes.
Mr. Vance renews his motion, is that right, Mark? You
Yeah,
renew your-
I'm not trying to tell you can't do that, I'm just saying, I'm trying to establish a policy that if I'm gonna submit a resolution, and I want it to go to the work session, then I need to have it in her hand no later than 12 noon on Wednesday, so that she can get that out to us by 5 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon. So that way, any resolution that would come in after that 5 o'clock, then it would be laid on her desk to be considered at the work session, and then be put up for first reading for the full commission the following week. All this is just trying to get all the docket in before 12 noon on Wednesday, so we can have it by 5 o'clock on Wednesday, so I can have an opportunity, everybody else can have an opportunity to read through the agenda. And understand that if you call in at 2 o'clock on Wednesday, you've gone beyond the deadline, and you can go ahead and still present it to her, but it's not going to be going out into the package to everybody else, it'll be laying on the desk.
Okay, you've heard the explanation, we have a motion on the floor and properly seconded, any discussion, any further discussion? Seeing none, we're gonna do a voice vote, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no? No. The ayes have it. Anybody that wants to question that vote, raise your hand. If there's 3 people, raise your hand. 3 people, raise your hand. Madam Clerk, would you? We're gonna take a roll call vote, because if I do a voice vote and I call it and you don't agree with it, I want you to raise your hand. So I'm glad 3 people did. So, Madam Clerk, would you take the vote on the motion for Mr. Vance?
It's just about entering the resolution.
Play by the laws that are on the books. Just play by the rules that are on the books.
This discussion's over. Would you take the vote, Teresa?
Aker.
No.
Blaylock. Yes. Broughton.
One abstain. I brought this up right.
Calvin's absent. Cole.
Everybody answer loud now so we hear.
He's gone. Crawford.
Yes.
Cross.
No.
Crosswhite.
Yes.
Gardner.
Yes.
George.
Yes.
Glover.
You can do it.
Yes.
Hartman.
Go.
Patton.
No.
Jones.
Yes.
King.
No.
Leonard.
Yes.
Locke.
Yes.
Morrell.
Yes again.
Shaw.
No.
Stanley. No. Starnes.
Yes.
Stidham.
Yes.
Vance.
Yes.
Woods.
Yes.
Would anyone like to change their vote?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Change mine to no.
While they're counting, I did bring fresh eggs that are sitting back there, if y'all wanna take some eggs from my chickens, there's some fresh eggs back there, they're not pecan, no, let's throw them.
Let's let the announce the vote.
In our goal.
Oh, that's right, oh, okay. 12 yes, 9 no, 1 abstain, and 2 absent.
Having not received the necessary majority, the motion fails. A couple of members have asked to be recognized. I do have a little housekeeping thing that we need to do now. And thank God, I don't think it's controversial. We passed a resolution on consent calendar changing from 5 to 7 the members of the Sullivan County Historic Association organized calendar. To allow them to have a quorum, we need to appoint those 2 members tonight. And so those members that I nominate to you are Dennis Hauser, who is former commissioner, you know well, and Tony Galloway, who tonight we elected historian. So if I have a motion, I'd like to have a motion. Colette George, Shell, Crawford. So we have a motion and a second to appoint Dennis Hauser and Tony Galloway to the Sullivan County Regional Historic Zoning Commission. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no, and we will notify them of their appointment. Thank you for that. We couldn't do that until we passed the thing on the consent calendar, so that's it. Representative Commissioner Hutton, I just promoted you to the House of Representatives.
I'm sorry, I know it's late, and, but I would appreciate your indulgence just for a few minutes. I think this is a matter of some importance. I think I've talked to some of you all about the Industrial Development Board and its relationship with the County Commission. And I know I've talked to Mr. Street about this, and I was unaware, really. I mean, the Tennessee codes allow for the Industrial Development Board to make decisions in terms of tax abatements for different industries for different reasons, to give tax incentives, TIFs, pilots to different groups. And I was unaware that those didn't necessarily have to come before the county commission in order to get approval or even information. The county commissions have to actually, whether it's a city council or county commission, actually has to give that approval to the industrial development boards in order for that to happen. But a recent action was taken, and there's some question about it, and I just want to, many of you probably already knew about it. It did involve the city of Bristol and the county, and there's some questions about whether the county, Sullivan County, has ever, in fact, in its history, given the Industrial Development Board like a carte blanche sort of resolution. I want to bring it up so that you're aware of it. I think it's something that we need to be vigilant about, asking for information, so that that we're aware that anytime a tax abatement goes out, whether it's a TIF or a pilot, whatever it might be, that we're informed and allowed. It might take the form of a resolution at some point. I think there's this current issue is still pending, and at least I hope so, that they're not rushing ahead with it, because I would like to actually have the most recent or current or pending pilots, like they brought to this board, for at least, so that we can be aware of it, we can vote to approve it and support it, because it is, one of those situations where tax money is given away, basically not collected for a period of time. And we should be aware of that, especially given it's budget time where, we just approved $225,000 for jail, we're talking about sewer lines, we should all be aware of that. And I wasn't aware, maybe you all were, and I'm just behind the 8 ball and wasn't paying attention, so, I don't know if Mr. Street would like to speak to that issue at all, I don't think so. So, I just want to throw that out.
I think you've made your statement, I don't think we need to enter time on that. Mr. Glover, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last Thursday night, I spoke about this, and I'm going to again, because I would like to address this to school board, Ms. Thomas from the school board, and if there's any other school board members here, I'd like to address this to them too. I strongly encourage you as a school board member to get with your board and reassess what's going on with the high school and the kind of money that's being spent with that project. Like Dr. Hutton said, we just appropriated $225,000 for a jail study. I think that jail is the utmost important of getting it completed. I think it's an emergency situation. I would encourage you as a member to get your other members to sit down and reassess the kind of money that you've got left to finish your projects. If it was me, personally, I would put the high school on hold and see how much money I've got left to finish the middle school. Put that middle school as a priority. Some of the funds that's going to have to be appropriated in the next little bits, I think $400,000 for a turning lane that TDOT's turned down. You're going to have that money. You just spent $56,000 for a gas line for the high school this past week, and I strongly encourage the school board to revisit that process. I'd love to have your comment on that, or the other school board members. We've talked about this several times, and we're not going nowhere. I went back through the process of the board's proposals. We're going to have to come up $11 million for renovating Central, $10 to $11 million to renovate South, another $9 to $10 million for East High School. And then we've got the problems at Sullivan North. We've got the problems that's coming on with Indian Springs too. If we're deciding to keep it open, that's going to be the kind of money that's going to have to be spent on that. That's $4 or $5 million. When you add that all up, we're talking probably about $115 to $120 million. Where are we going to get that kind of money? I think it's something that every commissioner in this chamber needs to start thinking about.
I've got a couple of announcements. I have a couple of announcements I need to make. Budget hearing 6 p.m. Monday the 25th, the Administrative Committee, Tuesday 26th, and the 28th, Executive Committee. So if you put those on the calendar, be no more business for the County Commission. I'll
Move to adjourn.
we have a motion to adjourn. Second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Go home.